Euphoria!
Welcome back, my friends, to the In Obscuria podcast, a podcast where we exhume obscure rock and punk and metal, and we put them in one of three categories: the lost, the forgotten, or the should-have-beens. I'm a should-have-been. My name is Kevin Williams.
You are still happening. You got stuff going on.
And that's Mr. Robert Harrison. What's going on, man?
Man, I am bloated. I ate way too much right before the show. I should not have done that. I don't have any room for beer.
So
that's how bad it is.
This guy over here gets hungry sometimes. I don't remember getting an invite. Every time I come over, it's always, I've just eaten.
Just put it away. Sorry. I ate
bad.
It all. All right, I'll make some extra next time. So I made something just
I have to eat it with a mask on, though.
That's true. You just slurp it.
Just going to get a little flap.
It's a strainer. It's a good filter. But I actually bought something at the store and cooked it just so I could say the word like 20 times.
And that word is?
Frikadellen. It's German.
I've never heard of that.
I had not heard it. I saw it sitting there. It's basically German meat patties, like hamburger patties.
Frickin' A.
It's freaking delicious. And so I saw it and saw the name and like, yes, I am buying something that's called frikadellen just so I could say that 500 times. But yeah, it was delicious. And it's like, it serves 4 people. And I ate half of it. And then in addition to some other things, and I made gravy. And I don't usually cook.
Now, how do you know it's German?
It's from a German bakery. That's the only reason I know that.
It was wrapped in a flag.
Yeah, there's a German bakery down the street, and we're so international here in our small town in Georgia that
we actually have listeners in Germany, so that's why I'm like, if you're wrong, they're going to call.
Oh, that's right.
out.
Maybe it's pronounced differently, but it looks like it's pronounced frikadellen. Maybe I'm accentuating it just slightly off, but God, it was so good. But now I'm regretting it because I don't even feel like drinking a beer right now, which is sad. I know. You're going to be on your own over there.
Well, it's happened before, and I'll just keep going. I'll soldier on.
I'm the designated driver tonight.
I have my recent favorite, which is the Dead Guy Ale Rogue.
Yeah, you've been drinking that a lot.
I love it. It's nothing like a dead guy. Dead guy in your throat's the best.
Dead flavor.
So, hey, if you're listening to us, you should really hop over and listen to Metal Up Your Podcast, The Dummy Room, who I just saw they're going to get an interview, I believe, with Milo from The Descendants. That's pretty cool.
Interesting.
That kicks ass. Pod of Thunder. Don't forget about those guys. They keep sharing us. So we're going to talk about Pod of Thunder several times in this show. So
who are you going to talk about?
Nick, Andy, and, of course, Chris L., and their new member, Chris Jericho.
And what was their name again?
Pod of Thunder.
Pod of Thunder.
Pod of Thunder. If you don't listen to Pod of Thunder, hop over and listen to them. They're awesome.
When you're finished with us, you don't go right now, but I mean, go ahead.
You could go right now.
Okay,
if you really want to.
You can just pause.
Who are we joking?
Yeah,
we can't compete with those guys.
God.
Oh, also, don't forget about the Decibel Geek podcast, Rock City, Cobras and Fire, Growing Up Rock, the Lipstick Panel, Ages of Rock, I Love It Loudcast, the Podkist, and hey, we talked about it on our Galactic Cowboys episode. Monty from Galactic Cowboys has his own podcast. It's called Monty's Rockcast. Go check it out. It's pretty funny. And he also talks a lot about his days in the band and who they toured with. It's very cool. So go check all of those out. Also, check out inobscuria.com. Like us, share us, recommend us on the Facebook, the Twitter, and the Instagram.
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 You had like 3 sips of beer already.
Yeah. I've been talking all day, and I'm really punchy, so this is going to be a great episode, I can already tell. All right, so, no occultisms this week again. I'm just off my game when it comes to
You've been playing it pretty
occult.
straight. You're trying to get in somebody's good graces here.
So.
You're trying to be all straight and narrow.
I guess so, but I did watch a very creepy documentary. I don't know about you, but this whole COVID-19 thing, shit, I said I wasn't going to talk about it, and here I go.
You just said, right before we came on there, I'm not going to talk about that virus thing.
Well, anyway, I think a lot of people are doing this. They're kind of binge watching, and especially I see a lot of people watching documentaries, and I've gotten sucked into it too because I don't know about you. Do you have Netflix? Do you have Amazon or any of those you go check out?
It's there. I don't know when I've checked it out lately. I think I watched a how-to video on YouTube on cleaning a carburetor.
Well, there's even that
a week ago.
There's a ton of
the most of my TV activity.
But anyway, I've noticed that Netflix especially is, it seems like their business has increased. They've upped their game with the amount of
they
content.
got a captive audience, man.
Yeah. So anyway, the documentaries are going crazy right now. And I actually watched one that is very old, but I had never seen it, and that's the documentary called Kurt and Courtney.
Oh, God.
Have you ever seen this?
No. Now conspiracy
theory
thing. Oh,
thing.
no.
It was really entertaining, a little bit creepy, and you can get sucked into it very easily.
That's how they do it. They first 5 minutes is a bunch of stuff. You're like, what? Oh, really?
My favorite part is they have the guy from The Mentors, El Duce. They have him on it, and one of the claims is that Courtney paid him to kill Kurt Cobain, and he actually died. I think he got run over by a train when he was drunk.
Oops.
Or something like that.
I hate when that happens. Go and have a beer and hit by a train.
Oh, man. But he was a real gem of a human being. I actually like The Mentors. Shout out to Chris L. from Pod of Thunder, because he's also a big Mentors fan. I got it in.
There you go. You got like 3 more.
All right. So anyway, that got me thinking. And I know it was a time period. It was a movement. And I thought we should talk about the underside of grunge.
Ooh, undergrunge. I get some
undergrunge.
A little bit of undergrunge right here. I got to get off.
Underside of grunge. This is the grungier than grunge that we're going to talk about today.
Oh, I like that. I'm looking forward to this.
So be ready. If you're listening, Robert, be ready to have some tissues, because we're probably going to be crying a little bit.
Bam, right here.
We're probably going to be very depressed by the end of this, because let's face it, most grunge music, even though it rocked, the lyrical content
really
was
made you
really
want to do
depressing.
heroin. God, I want to do heroin so bad every time I listen to it.
So anyway, let's talk about grunge. So for me, grunge came onto the scene really right when I was just going to college. Actually, the way it lays out is I graduated high school in 91. Okay, so hair metal was on high, and I was big into punk as well. So I kind of had the full spectrum. So grunge to me is just like take all the shit that Kevin likes and put it together, and that was grunge. I didn't see it as a movement. I would say that the freshman year is the same year that Guns N' Roses released Use Your Illusion 1 and 2. Mm-hmm. There was still a bunch of the hair bands first semester that were huge. And then right around first semester breaks, or right before Christmas, I remember the song came out on the radio called Smells Like Teen Spirit, and I remember calling Brandon Still. I was like, hey, man, they're playing a punk rock song on radio, dude. He's like, what? I was like, yeah, it's Nirvana's on radio. Have you heard it? He said, no. And then he said, oh, yeah, I've heard it. And we talked about it. It was like, that's really weird that they're playing a punk rock song. And little did we know that just a few short months later, the whole explosion of all of those bands. Now, I knew Soundgarden because they had been around forever, but there were tons of those bands that I didn't know because most of that music was regional to the Northwest. And unless you were into Sub Pop Records or CZ Records, which are the two main reasons that all of these bands got established, these independent record companies that have gone on to be just infamous, really, that's where it all started. And it was just a weird time. I don't know what your experience was. It was like one semester, it's one style of music, and by the next semester, everybody's wearing flannel. It
was about a 6 month to a year transition. I was already in college. I remember at a party, they just had the radio on, and it was the classic rock station. And I heard a song, and I honestly thought it was a parody song, like a Weird Al type song. And I thought it was
that was coming later.
Yeah, but I thought it was like a parody of a punk rock song. And we kind of halfway listened to it, and I thought, well, that's the stupidest song I've ever heard. And I heard some of the lyrics, a mulatto, mosquito, my libido. I'm like, wow, it's not even a good parody song. It's just kind of stupid.
This isn't going anywhere.
Yeah, I'm like, okay. But then when I was in my car, it was probably only a day or so later, I was in my car, and I was able to focus when it came back on, and I heard it. And that's kind of like just snapping your fingers. I'm like, oh, what is this? And I listened to the whole thing, and then it was the third time that it caught me. The third time, it was like the light bulb went on. I understood what that song was, and I was 100% on board with that. And so for me, I had not been exposed to Soundgarden before that, so I had still been listening to actual classic rock, the Pink Floyd.
Yeah, I was doing that too. I was getting into all that
and
stuff
I was
too.
Still listening to the Guns N' Roses, the new stuff, but I wasn't really that into it. And so it caught me at the time, just like probably everybody else, where I was a little bit over the hair metal. I never really got into it that much then. I'm much more into it now than I ever was.
Appreciate it more now.
I appreciate it more. I think it's great. But back then, I was still, like I said, classic rock. So all of a sudden, the classic rock station starts then playing not just Nirvana. we get Pearl Jam, we get Soundgarden, all the grunge artists that you think of now. And yes, in about 6 months to a year, then that station was mostly that, and they started coming out with alt rock station, and that's the first time within a year.
Yeah, alternative didn't exist.
Yeah,
there was college music. Which was like the college charts,
the college
Billboard, like in the back of Rolling Stone, right? There was a college section.
Yeah.
They list those, but that was mostly like pre-alt music, basically.
Yeah, and it wasn't the same. I mean,
kind
it
of
was
indie.
more,
That wasn't. None of the grunge bands were in there.
No, not at all. So yeah, you're absolutely right. It was a quick transition. It was a quick movement. Now we were in Florida, so there wasn't a lot of flannel because it was ass hot even in the winter time.
Yeah.
So we didn't quite pick up on that, but that
Doc
was
Martens and shorts.
Yep, Doc Martens and shorts. I look like two potatoes with forks, and I'm walking around my strong ass legs.
It's interesting what you said about the classic rock stations picking that stuff up when they hadn't really picked up maybe some of the other contemporary music at that
They were
time.
playing hair bands. I mean, once in a while, like I said, Guns N' Roses, but yeah, classic rock stations weren't doing new stuff.
Which made a lot of sense because I noticed the same thing at the same time where I was. I was in Clemson, so I was listening to most of the stations were either Greenville or Charlotte. And they were doing the same thing. It was the classic rock stations that picked up those bands and started putting them in rotation. And I think the reason for that is when you think about what is grunge, it's kind of what I alluded to earlier. It was all the stuff I was into. So it was a true mixture of punk, kind of that DIY ethos, as well as is the music. And sometimes the tempos were fast-paced, but for the most part, it was more metal. So it was punk and metal and kind of down-tempo and kind of grooving, which had a lot of respect for that 70s style rock. It was like, we're going to completely ignore the 80s for the most part and take everything from the 70s that we liked and just toughen it up.
Definitely. It was less of the spandex hairspray, woohoo, let's sing really high, to all of a sudden, let's just sing from the heart, just real gut-wrenching lyrics sometimes, and really ballsy music, too. It's hard to describe it.
I think it's fair to say that most of the bands were 80s bands, right? Let's be honest.
They all started
in the 80s, and they kind of morphed into what they became. So a lot of people would say that music killed glam metal. I think glam metal killed glam metal.
It was already dead, but it was on life support for a couple extra years.
You know, when I got into, before this whole scene, the scene exploded and people had this new terminology. I had the first Alice in Chains album. That came out in, I believe, either 89 or 90. I think it was 90. And I thought it was great. But to me, that was a metal album. That was just a good, grooving metal band. I had Soundgarden. They were on SST, which was a punk label. And so to me, they were like this hybrid, because back then there was also a movement, mostly in thrash metal, it's called crossover, which was where metal and punk met, and that created what became known as thrash. But this was like metal and punk met, but it was down tempo, so it was more grooving. It wasn't the fast pace. So I kind of feel like crossover, that period in the late 80s kind of produced two different genres, if you will. Thrash came first and then grunge kind of came later. But it makes complete sense to me that the stations that really latched onto these bands was the classic rock station. When you think about grunge, I'm just going to throw out, and you tell me if I'm missing anybody, but most of the bands are from the Pacific Northwest, mostly from Seattle, obviously, the Seattle sound. Nirvana, Soundgarden, Alice in Chains, Pearl Jam, which before Pearl Jam there was Mother Love Bone and Green River. They kind of morphed into Pearl Jam. There was a band called Mudhoney. I think a lot of people remember them. And even the non-Seattle bands, I think STP can be thrown into that mix.
Absolutely.
They were a California band, but also Sonic Youth. They were New York, but they were very heavily into that whole scene. And then Bush, who came a little bit later, but to bring an English band into it, I think Bush belongs in the category as well. We're not going to talk about any of those bands.
Damn it.
Because you can go hear them anywhere now.
Yeah.
They've really stood the test of time. I still hear that music today on stations. If I'm ever on a radio, I still hear that stuff.
But we don't have classic grunge stations.
We don't.
On the radio. We need to get something like that.
And then the other thing I think of when I think about grunge is, at least for me, going to see the movie Singles.
Oh, God.
Did you go see that?
No, I never saw it in the theater, but I have seen it since.
Because several, so Pearl Jam's in it. They're like the fake band in it. Matt Dillon's hit band is actually Pearl Jam. And then at one point, I think Soundgarden are in it. Yeah, because Chris Cornell, he's the one listening to the car when the speakers blow up or the the car's turned up so loud that all the windows break. Chris Cornell's out on the street like jamming his head to it.
I didn't know that. I just learned something new today. I did not know. Now I got to go watch it again.
Yeah, so anyway, I definitely think of that movie, although the theme of the movie is really it's just a love triangle kind of movie, but it's very ingrained. And then, of course, flannel. Let's not forget the very stupid fashion trend that came with it.
Tied around your waist.
Oh, yeah. Doc Martens, I can only imagine what their stock went up to in the 90s, but everybody had them. Everybody wore flannel, and all the girls were wearing backwards baseball caps and stuff at my college. It was really funny.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, backward baseball caps.
So anyway, all right, well, let's jump in, and I want to start with a band that really should have been bigger. However, they're going to be a common theme in almost every song that we play today. And the band I'm talking about is a band called Skinyard. You ever heard of Skinyard?
Nope.
All right, so they actually feature two members who were very much responsible for the whole Seattle scene. And the bass player, Daniel House, he operated CZ Records, a label that went on to produce several compilations that really gave national exposure to a lot of these groups, even though it was a local label. So it introduced folks to Soundgarden, the Melvins, Malfunction, which would go on to become Mother Love Bone, Green River. And then the guitarist in the band, his name is Jack Endino. And he is basically the grunge producer. I think we'll bring his name up almost in every single one of these bands today. He's the guy that they all went to, especially early on. And when they got more established, they went to Butch Vig. You'll hear his name a lot today as well. But Jack Endino, he produced the first Nirvana, Soundgarden, Screaming Trees, Mudhoney, and the Afghan Wigs, just to name a few. And you'll hear his name again. Now, Skinyard, they were, there's one album they have, I can't remember which one. There's an album that the extra track, that was a big thing in the 90s, put the extra track on. We did it too.
We did it, yes.
But one of the extra tracks is Jack Endino getting a call from a label representative, and they're talking to him about they're interested in the band and blah, blah, blah. But at the end, they go, yeah, we're really interested in you guys. We think Soundgarden's great. They thought they were talking to Chris Cornell the whole time.
What?
And he has that as one of his extra tracks on one of the albums. Brilliant. Really, really funny. The other thing about Skinyard, so they actually ended in 93. They ended like right at the peak of this whole thing. But they're also known as the drummer starter band. If you want to play drums in a grunge band, you would first have to go through boot camp at Skinyard. So here's the drummers that came out of this group. Matt Cameron, he left to go be in Soundgarden. He would leave Soundgarden to go be in Pearl Jam, and is still Pearl Jam's drummer today. So he was their original drummer. Second drummer, Barrett Martin. He's known for being the guy in the Screaming Trees. He was also in the band Mad Season, which consisted of Lane Staley and Mike McCready from Pearl Jam. And then Jason Finn left to form a really fun band that I used to love called Presidents of the United States of America.
I don't.
Peaches.
I don't like them.
You don't like them?
I hate that song.
Oh, man, I love them.
God, I hate that song.
I thought they were great. The bass player played a bass with 2 strings on it.
Well, okay. That might explain some of it. Yes.
I love it. I thought it was great. But anyway, that's if you want to be a drummer in the 90s, you should have gone through Skinyard first, or else you weren't going to make it. And really, Skinyard didn't make it. But I'm going to play something from their sort of breakout album called Fist Size Chunks. It's a great album title. And the song is called No Right from 1990, pre-Nirvana.
Back on the ground now, flat on your back, you're looking
Oh, that was some sweet, sweet grunge.
Right?
So sweet.
1990.
Damn.
Yeah, those guys were awesome. So they were out. I remember seeing them at the local record store, but I had no exposure to who they actually were. But I remember seeing this album years ago when it first came out and thinking, it's probably something I'd like. And back in those days, if you didn't know, sometimes I would just, like, the first time I got a Suicidal Tendencies album, it was solely based on the album cover. I'm like, I'm going to like that. I know I'm going to like that.
Art sells. Art absolutely
And this
sells.
one, I almost got it, and I didn't. And then it was really hard to find their stuff for a while. But I have it on vinyl now.
Nice.
So
No, that was really good. I mean, it's got all the classic grunginess, slightly down tempo, some weird guitar chords that I have no idea what he's playing, but it sounded perfect. And it's
maybe in
beautiful.
the tuning. You think he was tuned differently?
Maybe something, but
kind
it
of
was
open tuning or something?
gloriously weird. I mean, it wasn't weird as in avant-garde and hard to listen to. It was beautifully weird and off and perfect. I think that's what got me, because I always looked at the hair bands and the metal bands and even a lot of the classic rock bands is, hey, that's really cool. I'll never do that. I'm never going to have that kind of talent to play those screaming solos and blistering fast licks and stuff like that. But as soon as grunge came out, it suddenly became slightly more attainable. I'm like, oh my God, it's not the technique, it's the emotion you're playing with. And I thought I might be able to do that because I was just learning to play guitar at the time.
Yeah. To me, the tones are so much better.
Yeah,
the tones are so much closer to the original classic rock tones. I think the big difference with grunge to me is they played a lot of minor chords.
Yeah, a lot of minor chords.
It just sounds darker.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas a lot of classic rock and a lot of hair band music, which was based off classic rock, was mostly major chords, power chords. They're doing power chords here, but a lot of these bands did the whole drop D thing, so they'd have that really nasty lower, take the E string down to a D. And
Outshined is probably in my opinion, is the heaviest grunge song. And we could have, 5 podcasts on what the heaviest grunge song is, but that's my opinion. But it's so low and so slow.
I still remember when my roommate, Joey Hall, brought that home and he stuck that, I think it was a cassette, he stuck that in the player and that came on. I was like, they have grown.
Yeah. Well, see,
they've gotten better.
I didn't have anything to compare it to, so I heard it right out of the box just going, that's just heavy.
Yeah.
It was heavier than any of the Metallica that I was listening to at the time.
Bad Motorfinger, that album, just unreal. So good.
But back to this other stuff, note for future reference, we could do a whole podcast on pre-Nirvana grunge. Not just people that didn't make it, but all the stuff that came right before.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
People think Nirvana Teen Spirit is the beginning of grunge. And no, that's the beginning of...
That was the explosion.
Publicly known grunge.
We're going to touch on some of that today, although most of the stuff that we're going to play is post Teen Spirit. It's, the bands that were around at the same time, but maybe they just came out right after because that's when they got their major deals or just got that exposure they needed. The next band we're going to talk about came out in 92 with this particular album. And the album, if I say the album name, you might know who it is. The album's called Bricks Are Heavy. You might know.
No, I'm drawing a blank.
This is a band not from Seattle. This is a band from L.A. that formed in 85, and their name is L7.
Oh.
Now, this was a huge hit. So this barely makes the grade for getting put on to this podcast, but I feel like they're a one-hit wonder as far as most people go. Like, you think of L7, they had one kind of hit when this album came out from Bricks Are Heavy in 1992, and then they kind of went away. This is a band that they're not only considered grunge, but they're also considered kind of the start of the Riot Girl movement, which was, all of the tough chick 90s bands, the Riot Girls. Another interesting thing to note with this band is Susie Gardner, who was the singer. She actually provided backing vocals on Black Flag's 1984 Slip It In. And if you've ever heard Slip It In, it's a classic, man. And she does the backing vocals on that. It's so cool. When I found that out, I thought that was really cool. So this is actually their third album, Bricks Are Heavy. This is the one that really catapulted them. They had a major hit. The name of the hit was Pretend We're Dead. And it was on MTV, great video. It's, kicked off that whole Riot Girl, like, these girls are tough. They're going to kick your ass. And they probably did. This album was produced by Butch Vig. So here we start the producer name dropping on all of these records. So Butch Vig does their album after he does Nirvana's. So Nirvana had a big hit with him, so they got Butch Vig, and then they end up with a top 10 hit. You're going to see a pattern here. Another cool thing about this band, and I talked about documentaries early, and I've not seen any of them, but they've been featured in 3 separate documentaries about this band over the years.
Was it that interesting?
I guess so. I need to go check them out. So I think the latest one came out maybe 2 or 3 years ago. That's probably the one I'll check out first just to get the whole story. And then the other thing, the song that I picked before I play it, the song is called Wargasm. It's the first song on the album, and I bought this tape when I was in college, and I used to just have it in my Walkman constantly. I thought it was so awesome. And I never realized until I was doing some research for this episode that the scream is none other than Yoko Ono.
What?
Really weird. So I guess they took the scream off something else.
And they
sampled it, and they asked her permission, and she said yes. Interesting. Good thing they got a hit, because I'm sure they had to pay for that. Because she had that John Lennon money, that Beatle money. So anyway, here we go. L7, Wargasm, Brakes Are Heavy, 1992.
I would have paid not to have listened to that.
I never realized that was even a person. I thought it was like some kind of weird effect
sound
or something.
Effect. Yeah, like its own super helium effect.
Yeah, now that I know that, it makes that song not quite as appealing as it was before I knew that.
Yeah, I guarantee if you hadn't told me that, it wouldn't even register. I wouldn't even notice it because I was listening for it. I'm like, oh, God, what the hell?
It's interesting because that riff reminds me of STP.
STP,
right?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, dun, 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 dun. I am. Yeah, so was that, let's see, time frame after STP? What year did that come out?
Same year, I think.
Same year? Yeah, so just a coincidence.
Yep. But anyway, I dig L7. I always thought they were great. Remember the Lilith Fair?
Oh, yeah.
It was a all-female, what do you call it, a festival, I guess you call it, and it was mostly folky acts.
And Alanis Morissette.
Yeah. So L7, we're not on that. What I heard was they rented a plane that flew above it that said, if you want some real music, listen to L7. That's awesome.
I like him even more now. That was a lot of granola rock.
I never got that stuff. That's just not me.
A lot of unshaven armpits.
Yeah. Next, I'm going to go to the total grunge town, the other scene, Washington, D.C. Yeah, maybe not. Maybe
What?
maybe not known for being grunge, but definitely known for being a punk rock town and for being known as the place where Discord Records is from, which you have your Fugazis and tons of other bands, and Bad Brains came out of there, Henry Rollins. A lot of history in the punk spectrum from D.C. And the band I'm going to be talking about was actually really considered a hardcore punk band. And they formed in 1981. So these guys were old by the time grunge came around. Not really, but they were young when they started. But they were also known, I'll just go ahead and say their name. So their name is Scream.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. What?
Scream!
Oh, okay. Scream for me.
Yeah, this is Bruce Dickinson's favorite band. Scream for me! They're really known, not so much for being an awesome hardcore band, which they are. They're really known for being the launching pad for a 17-year-old guy that joined the band in 1986 on drums. His name is Dave Grohl. And this is the band that Dave was in before he joined Nirvana. Oh. So Dave was not Nirvana's original drummer. Their first album, Bleach, does not feature Dave. He's not the drummer on that. He came on board for the Butch Vig produced mega hit that is Nevermind. I wanted to feature something from Scream because this is an interesting story. So he came in 1986. They had been around since 81. They lost their drummer. They hired this kid named Dave. He goes on tour with them. They do all these punk rock tours, and they meet cool people like the guys in the Melvins who eventually introduced Dave to Nirvana, and the rest is history. He also records 2 albums with this band. The last album that he records with them is in 1990, yet this album never got released until, or didn't get released until 1993.
Sat on a shelf.
So Discord released this in 93. And the really interesting thing, I think, when you listen to this in retrospect is they were headed in a different direction, and had Dave not gone to Nirvana, they might have had Nirvana-type success if somebody would have gotten behind this. You be the judge and tell me what you think of Scream and their new direction that they were going in with their album called Fumble, which should have come out in 1990, pre-Teen Spirit.
Dave was giving those drums some workouts.
He always did.
He always did,
man. He killed those drums.
Oh, God, that was refreshing. Yeah, it sounded
good.
A little familiar. Really good.
Really good.
I have no problems with that at all. I can't say anything bad. It just, God, they kicked ass.
Kind of reminded me of, if you ever listened to Rollins Band, had a little bit of that Rollins Band kind of sound if Bob Mould were singing for Rollins Band. So think of the guy that was in Sugar, who was Skidoo.
Yeah, we saw him.
Singing with Rollins Band.
Yeah.
That's kind of what they sounded like to me.
That'd be a good mix.
It would be a good mix. Although I got to have Hank in there. He'd have to be at least be sweating and running around.
Yeah, you get a little funk.
Yeah, so they split up, and that's why Dave got his opportunity. He reached out to his friends in the Melvins and said, "Hey, what's going on? My band's breaking up." And they said, "Oh, well, Nirvana's looking for somebody." And I think they had played together with Scream, but the rest is history, as they say. But for Discord to shelve it, I'm not really sure. I guess because they had split up, Discord thought, well, why release it?
Yeah, they're not going to put a lot of money into this.
And then 2 years later or 3 years later, we need to release this because...
Let me send a memo down to the storage room. Can you bring up that one CD? Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, you think Ian MacKaye is not all about capitalism, but come on. They released this in '93 at the height of grunge.
Yeah, they got something which is more than nothing.
Yeah. Anyway, who knows? Maybe it wasn't Ian's call, but I think it's funny nonetheless. So I'm actually going to go to another non-Seattle band next, and this is a band that I heard at my grandmother's house in Sanford, North Carolina.
Your grandmother rocks, man.
My grandmother was rocking this stuff, man. No, I heard it on her television. I was there one summer. I guess it would be the summer of '92. I was there visiting, and it was one of those, some kind of teen show or something, like one of those half hour back in the day, and they would feature different bands and show videos, but it wasn't MTV. It was like a network or something. Anyway, like a Saturday morning thing. And I heard this band, and they were playing a cover of a Beatles song, and it kicked ass, and it had this amazing fuzzy guitar. It just sounded phenomenal. And the name of the band is Overwhelming Colorfast. And as soon as I could, I found their tape, and I went out and bought the Overwhelming Colorfast in 1992, and sure enough, the album is brilliant, and I actually own everything they've ever released. They only released 3 albums. They called it quits in 96, and they had 2 EPs and 3 albums, and I have all of them. And the interesting thing is, guess who produced this album in 1992?
Biggie?
Butch Vig.
Mr. Big.
Yeah.
Was he Mr. Big?
He wasn't Biggie Smalls.
No, that was Mr. Small.
Anyway, this band, they kind of straddled the line between grunge and power pop and punk, but I'm going to throw them in here because, one, they're produced by Butch Vig in 1992. Let's be honest, all these bands,
they're related,
have that sound, that big, nasty, fuzzy, awesome guitar, and just a lot of energy, and that's what they have here. And the first album is amazing. Second album's great, and I only recently found the third album. It was very hard to find, and it's great as well. So one of my favorites from the period. This is Overwhelming Colorfast with a song called Try.
See it on your mind, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love his vocals.
That was awesome.
I love that.
There's a little bit of Hendrix in that.
Yeah, it's total retro, kind of early 70s, late 60s mixed in with what was going on then.
A lot of wah pedal.
The wah, so
wah.
distorted bass
wow.
with a wah in it. I love it.
I seem to recall that in a few songs around that same time. So either just the guitar wah, wow, a lot of Alanis Morissette had it. It just as a background, not the main lead.
And it sounds like it's just like a chromatic run, like just straight up. Four frets.
It wasn't anything too complicated,
so awesome.
But fun.
So good. That whole album's good. And I looked it up. I couldn't remember which Beatles song it was that I saw them play, but it was She Said, She Said. They do an awesome fuzzed out version of it. Really good. And that guy's voice to me always reminded me of Bob Mould, again, from Husker Du and Sugar. Around this time he was in Sugar. Probably could have included them in this, but
they're too well known.
They're too well known. But his voice has that Bob Mould sound to it, which is one of my all-time favorite vocalists. Let's move on. We're going to go back to Seattle because we got to hit Seattle a few more times since we're talking about grunge. It's required. It was actually in the contract when I signed on to do this episode.
It feels like Seattle out there today.
It does, man. It's cold.
Overcast. It's like 59 degrees. It's freezing cold out there.
All right, so we're going to talk about a band called TAD. TAD.
Tax Allocation District.
Yes, it's the tax allocation. No, the guy's his last name was Tad. So anyway, that's why this band is called Tad. So
the Tad short.
They're one of the original Seattle bands in that whole scene. They were formed in '88, and they were one of the first signings on Sub Pop Records. But their first album, guess who produced it? Jack Endino, Skin Yard.
Both of them?
First album.
Oh, was that one guy, Jack
Endino.
Oh, I thought it was two people.
No,
not
Jack and.
Oh,
Jack
I thought it was like a group or something.
I may be saying his name wrong. Who knows? Anyway, he's from Skin Yard, right? And the second album they had was produced by Steve Albini, who we talked about last week, right? He produced he produced Nirvana's follow-up In Utero, the follow-up to Nevermind, that is. And their third album, which I'm going to play from, is produced by Butch Vig. So there you go. There's the producers title. Again. The
6
template.
degrees of big.
Exactly. Vig, not big. Vig. V-I-G.
V with the V, like the.
He was also in the band Garbage.
Okay, that's why my jokes were falling flat.
That's why I had no idea what you were talking about.
Oh, that makes more sense. You know I'm deaf, right? You're like I was in a band.
Well, I also have been drinking beer, and I'm trying to pronounce things.
And I ate too much, so I can't hear properly. It's affecting my hearing. That's how much I ate.
Yeah, Vig.
Okay, no more big jokes.
All right, here we go. They're produced by all three of the producers that also produced Nirvana records. Interesting. So they signed with a major in 92, and they went on tour with none other than Soundgarden, opening for their Super Unknown tour, I believe it was. And then they were dropped about a year later because I guess they didn't make enough of a splash, and they ended up disbanding in 1999. But this is known as one of those bands that was part of the scene and helped develop the whole scene. So I'm going to play something from 1991's album called 8-Way Santa. Go look up the album cover. And the song is called Delinquent. And I will mention that there is a documentary on this band, which I need to go look up as well, called Busted Circuits and Ringing Ears. It came out in 2008. I definitely want to go see that one. Let's check out Tad.
Lose no time and have some fun. Gonna have some fun.
So we're always asking the question, why didn't this band make it and this other band did? And in this case, it's really interesting because it reminded me of a Nirvana song. I've heard lots of Nirvana songs. I've never heard a song by this band. So, of course, it reminded me of one of theirs. So I was thinking, what if for some reason Nirvana had covered this song and then play them back to back? And I was picturing Kurt Cobain singing the song and how his voice was very unique. He had a lot of unique characteristics with his voice and what he would do with it. And I would imagine I would like it even more if Kurt had sang this and what they would have done with the arrangement. So it's a good song and they did a good job with it, but maybe one reason Nirvana is who they are and this band didn't is those little things, those little details like Kurt's voice, the things he does with his voice when he sings.
It's funny you're saying that because I was thinking the same thing. Musically, this holds up to everything else that was going on.
Yeah.
However, it's the voice. So
because I used to make fun of Kurt the way he sung back in the day. I'd kind of make fun of it because it's so unique and different. But I learned to respect it and admire that it was his own quality. It was another instrument. The band was the way he sang.
True. But if you think about the other contemporaries, so other than Nirvana, Soundgarden, who can hold a candle to Chris Cornell?
Well, true. Yeah.
Alice in Chains, who can hold a candle to Jerry or Lane?
Either one.
And then Pearl Jam, Eddie Vedder. Amazing.
So same thing, take that song and have Soundgarden cover that song. Like same arrangement and everything. Don't change it too much, but just their musicianship, their style added to that song. And it would have been probably another, hit for them like their other songs were.
Yeah. Tad always came across to me like Northwestern Pacific good old boys. They were kind of like the rednecks of the Northwest.
They wore flannel before it was cool.
But they come across like they're just the dudes down the street. You know, they're logging during the winter, or during the summer, and then
beavers,
and then they're in the band at night or something.
No, you're right.
That's always how they came across as like kind of good old.
They
boyish.
weren't quite as artistic as maybe some of the other bands.
Yeah,
but still, I mean, it was good.
Same background as Kurt in Nirvana, but you're right. It just wasn't quite unique enough, and I think it's in the voice.
In the voice. And that's what the whole time that song, I kept picturing Kurt singing that. And once again, even if you just changed the voice, kept the music the same. I mean, Kurt wasn't known for being a guitar virtuoso. He had his own style.
He was unique.
It was simple, but still his voice was complex when he would sing.
All right. Well, let's go back to the ladies. Oh, yeah. We're going to talk about the ladies.
Always ready for that.
It's time for the latest band. This is an all-girl group that I want to say, I don't know this for a fact, I want to say in the back of my head with the bong resin, I think that I first heard of this band on Beavis and Butthead. Is that exactly? I want to say that's where I heard of this band, and I saw, how they used to play a clip of their videos, and they would talk about it. I want to say that's where I heard of this band, but I'm not sure.
You take what you get. That's.
But I remember buying the tape for
Publicity is publicity, so
exactly.
It doesn't matter.
Anyway, the name of the band is Babes in Toyland.
Oh, yeah.
And they're a Minneapolis band. They're not from Seattle. They're a power trio, all-girl group, formed in 87. And they sort of predate the whole Riot Girl thing a little bit. They were lumped into that whole scene, but they never actually affiliated with that scene. They kind of did their own thing. And they were only around until 95. They released 3 albums from 90 to 95. They have regrouped and done reunions and things like that, but really that was when they were around. And an interesting thing, Courtney Love. So when you think about the band Hole that she was in,
I really don't want to.
I know we're not really going there. We're not going to play.
I want to think about her. Okay,
but that is what started this whole thought process.
You know, she killed Kurt, don't you?
I heard that on the documentary. Yeah, she paid El Duce.
The Duce.
Courtney Love actually lived with, I think, the singer in this band and claimed for years that she was their bass player for a while. But
of course she did.
But the band actually says, no, she never was the bass player. So I don't know why there were stories like that. But anyway, Jack Endino of Skin Yard produced their debut. Just wanted to throw that out.
Oh, interesting.
Now, their second album is produced by Lee Ronaldo, who is one of the guitarists in Sonic Youth. And this album is what I'm going to play from. This is where I first heard them. They had a fairly decent single on this album, and it actually sold 220,000 records, so they did pretty well.
Yeah, got a little parking money.
And they actually played Lollapalooza 93. Now, I saw Lollapalooza 93. I think that's the only one I saw. And they were not on my stop in Charlotte, but they did play the tour. I don't know why we didn't get them, but we got Tool not bad.
No, just pretty good trade. It's about even,
I didn't even know who Tool were. I step onto the fairground, which is where this was in Charlotte, and I just hear this amazing music, and there's this cloud just of dust as I'm walking up to it and kind of running up to him like, what is this? And I see this guy on stage writhing around, and he's got a tattoo of a skeleton on his back, like the entire spine and rib cage. That's what's tattooed on Maynard's back.
It just seems like it would hurt.
And in 1992 or 3, or I think it was 93, that was impressive to young Kevin. I was like, whoa.
Tattoos were just becoming mainstream.
Well, I mean, to that extreme.
Yeah.
And to hear the sounds that were coming out that was Tool. But we're not talking about Tool. I don't know why I got on that tangent. But anyway, we're talking about Babes in Toyland.
Don't be a Tool.
Anyway, there was... Nice. Anyway, they were supposed to be on that one, but they weren't on my stop. I'm going to play Bluebell, which is off the album called Frontenelle, 1992, Babes in Toyland. The lead singer, Kat, has one of the best girl screeches ever recorded. So, just be prepared. Put some cotton in your ears. You got to be prepared for the song.
That was a quick one. Yeah. What was the lead singer's name again?
Her name's Kat. I can't remember her last name. I think it's something I can't pronounce.
Okay, I'm going to add her to the list of people I really don't want to piss off. Because I do not want to be the recipient of that.
That was tame compared to some of the other
I could just see her coming at me with that scream, "You son of a bitch, what the..." Okay.
And she's tiny.
That's
at least
even
she
worse.
walks in.
That's even worse. I don't care. They're wiry like that. They get all up in your business and you just regret it. So yeah, I'm going to add her to that list.
And that's what I love about this time period, especially not so much the genre or the movement, but just this whole time period. It felt like music was very honest and not contrived. And if you wanted to scream in a song, you screamed in a song.
Yeah, if you want to sample Yoko Ono, sample Yoko Ono. It does not matter.
And it still sold units back then. It was like, it wasn't something that was shunned or it was kind of becoming status quo. Like, do your thing.
It's what
make your noise.
It's what it took to make me believe that I could be a musician, because it was simple, it was honest, it was just whatever you were feeling.
I'm going to put that on a t-shirt. There. Do your thing, make your noise.
Do your thing, make your noise.
I like that.
I like it. That's Nike will pick that up. You'll get rich.
Probably not. Okay. Well, let's move on. I have one more song, and we've talked a lot about Jack Endino and all the things he's produced, and we're going to talk about him one last time. So if you don't know yet that you need to go check out Skinyard. You need to go check out Skinyard. So Skinyard was over in 1993. What happened to those guys other than Jack? One guy owned a record label. The other guy was this major producer for all these bands. What happened to the other guys? Well, they go on to form a band called Grunge Truck.
Grunge Truck?
Grunge Truck. It's a great band.
Grunge Truck.
Grunge Truck. Grun Truck. They actually formed in 89 when Skinyard was still around. It was sort of a side project for two of the guys from the band. And it was formed by the singer from Skinyard, who's also a guitarist, and I believe the drummer, the last drummer. Remember Skinyard, every drummer became something.
After they
so the last drummer,
yeah.
This is where he went. He went to Grunge Truck. So, and then they included a guitarist from Crossover. I mentioned Crossover earlier. A Crossover thrash band called The Accused, who were from the Seattle area, who were playing that style of thrash metal that was sort of punk. It was sort of metal. They were a great band, The Accused. So anyway, they all got together. They formed Grunge Truck, and then after Skinyard's over, they continue forward with Grunge Truck, and they end up getting a major label deal for their second album, which came out in 1992. It's called Push, and I'm going to play a song called Body Farm from that album. Now, on that tour, they actually opened for two major 90s bands. They opened for Alice in Chains in 92, and they opened for Pantera in 93. Ooh. So I can only imagine how good their road stories are.
God, between those two.
I mean, between those two bands and this band, once you hear them, you're like, oh, yeah, they belong in the mix. Now, what happened, this is an interesting story. So they do the two albums. The second album's on a major. They're doing great. And then they have legal and label issues where they want to get released from their contract from who they were signed with. Another label tries to buy them out for like $1 million, and for whatever reason it falls through. It doesn't happen. The one label won't let them out of the deal. So that goes all the way to 96, and they start recording their third album. Well, then it just gets shelved because they can't settle these disputes that they're having. And then in 2003, so you go all the way to 2003, Ben McMillan, who's the singer in Skinyard and this band, he dies. And so then you have an album that's mostly complete and it's shelved because of legal issues. Once that finally gets resolved, there's no reason to release it because the singer has now passed away. So it ends up sitting on the shelf, and then Jack Endino, in 2016, he starts talking to somebody who owns a label. I forget what the label was, but they agreed to buy it and release it. And in 2017, their third and final album is finally released. And it's really good. I got it when it came out. Yeah, so it's just a crazy story that it finally came out, and it's great. The Grunge Truck trilogy is complete. But I'm going to play something from the second album. This is when I got into them in 1992, again, at the height of everything that was going on with grunge. This is Body Farm.
And things, there's no one here. I think there's something wrong, and so you say okay, we'll get a body farm, and I'm sure that you'll be warm. I've gotten you a body farm. Pretty little flashback comes, light up the sky with orange, and here upon our scene, mushroom pop's a silly thing. You with your rubber nails, laughter from your purple veil. Let's go and pay the farm, people on our body farm. And I'm sure that you'll be warm. I've gotten you a body farm, and I'm sure that you'll be warm. I've gotten you a body farm. Pretty little flashback comes. We're walking in our dreams.
I'm loving this theme and I love the music, and I can't help but do one more comparison. Just substitute Chris Cornell for that vocalist. Keep everything else the same.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see it makes me appreciate Soundgarden. I like this band, and it makes me appreciate Soundgarden even more, knowing that all you had to do was give Chris Cornell one time through and sing that song the way he normally would. And it shows that's a good song. It's a simple difference of the singer.
The funny thing about what you just said is these guys were big friends with Soundgarden, and the reason that their name is Grunge, they had a different name. There was a second side project they had with Chris Cornell, and it had truck in the title. And so they combined the two projects that they had together to form Grunge. So the truck piece comes from Chris Cornell.
Okay. See, that it's just there's somehow some metaphysical influence where it's in there. It's in that song. It's just screaming for Chris to have sung that.
Well, it's very similar to the riffs that Chris would play.
Yeah.
Very, very similar. And I thought it was interesting that whole song, for the most part, is single note guitar playing. Just playing a riff, but it's not even chorded.
Yeah, it's
a single note.
Dun, 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 dun,
dun.
But that's part of why grunge was so good. It was so simple. Once again, this is why I started really paying attention, because I thought, one note at a time and not these really complicated. I think I might be able to someday do that.
I don't have to know all those jazz chords.
Exactly. I don't have to practice pentatonic scales, to be able to have the speed. I can just play one note at a time and get away with it.
Of course, what do I do at this time period? I go, this is great music. I'm going to go learn how to play funk and jazz. Yeah, so that's what I tried to do.
Prog rock about now?
Yeah, I'm going to do some prog and jazz and funk and mix it up.
And I was annoying the absolute hell out of the neighbors that lived downstairs from me, because I was learning really how to play rock guitar. I knew how to play guitar. I'd taken classical guitar lessons, but I got sick and tired of that. I was like, fuck that. I don't want to be Andre Segovia. I want to be...
Didn't you play Stairway as part of your course or
my
something?
very first guitar class, like intro to guitar. I mean, they're doing 3 chords. It took a while to get a song that you're doing 3 chords, and I was so into it. I was practicing, and you got to pick your own final exam song, and it was a sliding scale. So the harder the song, the easier you were graded. If you chose a really simple, like a Jimmy Buffett song or something, then you had to play it perfectly. And I don't know what, it was just typical my mindset. It's like, fuck it, I'm going to go all the way with this. And the thing is, you had to sing too. He didn't grade.
He did?
Oh yeah, he didn't grade you when you're singing, but he wanted you to learn to play guitar and sing at the same time, so you didn't have to go back and try to learn to sing later on,
which is what I had to do.
Yeah, exactly. And so he was smart. He's one of these just laid back guys. He's former hippie, whatever at the time. And this is 1990, probably 89, 90. Yeah, and I walked in and played Stairway to Heaven, and I made it through.
Did he roll his eyes when you said what you were going to play?
No, because it wasn't so much of a cliche at that time. Okay. Keep in mind, this is way before
Wayne's World.
Wayne's World. Yeah, sorry.
A year before, maybe.
Yeah, but
two
not
years.
way before. It was before that. So it wasn't the cliche of don't play Stairway to Heaven. So I did it, and I remember coming back the next semester, and I was in the hallway waiting outside for the class to start. And some guy, 2 guys, walked past, and they looked at me and like, oh, that's that guy that played Stairway to Heaven for his final exam. I didn't know it, but they had all talked about it. Like, so these guys knew the teacher. So he went and told everybody that some guy played Stairway to Heaven for his final exam.
A 7-minute opus.
Yeah. So I walked the next semester, I walk into class, and the teacher goes, oh, yeah, I know who you are. You just go ahead and skip this class. And they let me skip an entire class because I'd already taught myself how to finger pick by learning to play Stairway to Heaven.
Now, did you do that on a nylon string classical guitar?
Nylon string classical guitar. Not only that, it was full-size guitar at class. When I went home back to my dorm room, I had a 3/4 size guitar it was my dad's. So I would practice on a 3/4 scale guitar, which is smaller. Right. And then I would go to class and instantly have to relearn it on a full-size guitar.
It's like almost 25% smaller.
It's like small. It's really tiny. But yeah, it was just at that time, like I said, I was so passionate about it that I was just learning really fast. And that was my claim to fame. From then until I finished school, I was that guy that played Stairway to Heaven for my father.
Dude,
Sam.
Stairway.
And that was
You're the man.
one of 3 times in my life where I thought, oh my God, I'm cool. Like the rest of my life, I'm always like, oh my God, I'm such an idiot. I'm such a nerd, I'm such a dork. But then as like 1 or 2 times in my entire life, I'm like, yeah, that's right.
All right, so now I have to ask, what were the other 2?
Oh, playing in Big Jack Pneumatic.
No, we were dorks.
We were
Go ahead.
dorks, but
We had fun, though.
Yeah, that it was the show where I met a certain young lady in
yeah.
Illinois. I was
yeah.
carried around the room on some guy's shoulders while I was
you
playing
were
guitar.
you were definitely a rock star
that night. I was a rock star.
Yeah.
In my mind,
Yeah.
I knew for sure. So
here's what happened for people listening. Here's what happened. Robert plays. This is when you know you're a rock star. You play a show. You meet the ladies after the show, and then one of them is so taken with you that within a week or 2, all of a sudden she's in your town where you live.
I may have bought her a plane ticket.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, I'll just go ahead and ruin the story. But it was still,
bummer.
She was willing to get on a plane, and she had moved to Atlanta
This is
within
the first
about
time I'm
6
hearing
weeks.
this. This is like 20 years later.
Yeah, I know, but it's still cool the fact that she picked up and moved.
Hey, I would have
show.
bought her a ticket too.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And a couple of bottles of Heinz.
Long story. Bless her heart. She was so good looking.
Yeah, she was attractive.
Conversations were painful sometimes. But God, I hope she's not listening.
So for those of you who are not from the South in the United States, if as long as you say bless your heart or bless her heart, you can pretty much say
Yeah.
the worst thing you can ever
I
think
absolve myself
about
from
somebody.
guilt.
It completely
Guilt.
takes care of it by saying bless her
Bless
heart.
her heart, because she is such a sweetheart.
So that is Southern 101.
And she is now married with kids and lives about 10 miles from here. And if she hadn't have met me that night, who knows what her life would turn out to
Exactly.
be.
You
So
made her life,
I made
dude.
her life and her night.
All right, so what was the third one? So you mentioned 3. What was the third time? It has to be Circus.
It would be
Circus Combustus.
something to do with blowing off 1,000 pounds of propane at Burning Man, standing on scaffolding, shooting a flamethrower.
That is pretty cool.
In front
is
of
really
about
cool.
1,000 people that were blitzed out of their minds at Burning Man. So yeah, it involved a flamethrower and lots of propane.
Or riding through the desert on a pirate ship playing funk music.
That's also maybe 4 times. Yeah,
yeah, that's pretty cool.
that just felt cool. It wasn't that I was cool. It just felt really
That's
cool.
pretty
Yeah.
cool. All right. Well, on that note, the grunge years, you're not too depressed, I take it. You're okay?
No, I'm really well digested. Thank you. I've
Okay,
got room
good.
for a beer now.
I'm glad. So hopefully everybody enjoyed the grunge years and hopefully it didn't bring you down.
No, that's
Hopefully
good.
it brought
That's
you
good
up.
grunge. That's good grunge.
Yes, and hopefully we played some stuff that maybe is a bit forgotten if you remembered Babes in Toyland or Tad or L7, but you didn't really know much about them. And hopefully those bands that were maybe lost on you, like Skin Yard, Overwhelming Colorfast, Scream, go check these things out. And I've got enough of these in the canon. We can do another couple episodes of this because this is
Please.
fun. This was when I was a young man and I was just really getting into music.
You just started
This whole thing
shaving.
hit. No, that just started like 3 years ago. Anyway,
Baby face.
that's what we have. Later, peeps.
See you.